stab you, you stab me, dancing fool. Justice be served. Or do you forgive? Or do you take it? And over. Last chance, baby.
everyone. Welcome to the Portal to Justice. This is Amelia Duran, your host. And let's see. I did a long intro because I was waiting for Mizz Lotus Justice. It's March 14th, 2018. And the topic, I guess, well, I called Lotus. Lotus has been blowing up my phone, but I called Lotus today because we have this issue of censorship. And I don't know, I really want to, I guess, be proactive, get some flesh in the game, maybe file something. So we're going to start with the footsteps. And we're debating, her and I guess what they're trying to say is there's no longer jurisdiction. Okay, good to go. All right. I'm calling you right now, Lotus. Got your text. Can you hear me, girlfriend? Stand by. Oh, I forgot what I was just saying. All right. Are you there? Anyways, I guess the argument is that they're claiming that the FCC doesn't have jurisdiction. And hi, how are you? It's me. Can you hear me?
Yeah. We're live or no?
We're live.
Hello, everybody.
Are you ready?
That's such a large question. I don't even know how to answer that. I'm ready for a lot of things. I'm ready to not live under a totalitarian world of banking fascism. How about that?
Thank you so much. Oh my God. Yeah.
So weird to live in clearly evident fascism, where corporations, which are sitting in the seats of our government as fiduciaries and as trustees, are actually oppressing the world. It's really the world. It's not just the United States, because, we're the biggest military power other than like Russia in the world, and we occupy 196 countries, I think. And we're the jackboot of the Rothschild Babylonian slave trade banking system, and we have a fiduciary duty as the American people to not let our government be that. And I'm ready for when we as Americans bring that to the arena in law and or politics or whatever, but particularly law, that in as much as it's our estates that they're using to fund these activities throughout the world, that the law is respected and the course of law is allowed to provide remedy and relief. I mean,
and we're nowhere near remedy and relief with the new applications of lawlessness, I should say. I think it's lawlessness, personally.
We are lawless. We do have lawlessness. The case with my son proves that we have law. I mean, the case with my son proves upon the record, prima facie, that you have rogue factions in your judiciary that are affecting child trafficking outside the law, outside due process, and it's willful and it's with intent, and it's in the face in this case. They can't produce the transcripts required by law, even though they've been put under PIP reviews, which is performance evaluation reviews, which is the only thing that Title IV allows the Fed to do, is to come in and do selective audits and say, hey, you're not in compliance with. And they've been under PIP, I think, at least 3 times. And unfortunately, when you get performance evaluation penalties, I guess, I can't remember what the other P stands for, but they then go to the state, and the state's allowed to self-regulate, say, hey, we fixed it all. Well, the last time, I think every time they've been brought forth on these performance evaluations, and we're talking about they only pulled 10 cases or something and they violate 8. I mean, it's that bad. But the biggest issue has been providing transcripts. Well, this is a 30-year-old statute. the fact that the states are willfully, the state of Ohio is willfully not in compliance with the state law the federal law federal statute as law after 30 years and has had repeated violations under that, where they have been allowed to be self-managing, and they've willfully neglected to even fill court reporter positions, but they're required by the state statutes to have. So you have a state in the state of Ohio where the state statutes mandate that every common pleas court, which is inclusive of the juvenile and probate courts, are required by statute to have an on-staff court reporter. That's the state mandate. That's the state statute mandate.
Hence my argument, which is we should have audio and video in all of the courts, which would be more cost effective.
Well, they do have that. They have audio, but that's not the issue. The reason
there's programs where you can translate
absolutely,
from Dragon. You don't. Directly from Dragon, you can translate.
Yeah, but you're not understanding the purpose of a court reporter. Is that court reporter is an independent notarial officer who, when you put transcripts up on the record, are putting their notarial seal as a licensed instrument of the state, who personally certify under oath that what is being presented is a factual document. Okay? That's why you have to have court reporters. Because I can take an audio that you give me, and I promise you I can amend it and edit it. I've actually know for a fact, because they've admitted it.
But I don't understand why we're in 2018, why we don't have audio and video in the court, especially when the courts receive federal funding for audio.
They do have it, but when you subpoena it, they consider it a private document. That should tell you something. So they do have them. Okay, but that's not the point. Even the ones that do that, other than a video is one thing. Audio, I can take an audio and I can manipulate it, and I'm going to tell you not only that, but when the audios actually need to be, there should be two independent audios. You should be allowed to come in and bring your own audio, which they don't do, and there's a reason for that. They don't want there to be differing records where you can prove that they have adulterated the record.
That's why I think we should have video and audio recording in the court.
And a court report. And a court reporter. Not just that. You have to have a clerk of courts.
Okay.
Court reporter. A court reporter is a physical, flesh and blood man or woman who is going to affirm under penalty of perjury and the seal of their state licensure notary instrument that what is being put forth upon the record is a factual document and that it is not being obfuscated, defrauded in any way. It puts a responsibility in the law upon a man or a woman. That is why they are mandated by federal law to have the ability to present transcripts. And in fact, under Title IV, the only thing upon appeal that can be presented on behalf of the state is that transcript. So if you have a state that can't produce them, that's a willful, after 30 years and multiple PIPs, that's a willful intent to defraud. Okay? So we have a case where there's no transcript that can be produced. They have no court reporter, as the state statutes mandate each common pleas court to have. So they're even violating the state statutes here, and they're still being allowed to do this. They've been violated multiple times by the Fed. They've been flagged for this violation multiple times by the HHS audits. And you have a case where there is clearly no warrant.
We have
emergency order.
We have several states. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm saying, and it's a case where there's no emergency order that's ever been produced to show that they have the emergency order to, literally an emergency order to seize warrant. You know, they don't even have that. And
I don't even understand how they're operating with some states budgeting out the clerks that are in.
Hey, all I know is the state statutes of the state of Ohio mandate that every common pleas court must have an employed court reporter.
But a lot of these cases don't have a court reporter.
I agree with that. So you want to tell me why there's no enforcement? So again, you have a coup within the judiciary to willfully allow the obfuscation or the undermining of the statutes in the state and the federal government, which in itself is an act of treason. When the judiciary allows the things that say, you shall do this. Whenever a statute says you shall, there is no room for not doing it. You cannot, there's no escape clause. There's no way around it. You can't adorn it. That's why the word shall is used in statutes.
So,
you shall not, just like in this case, the court shall not interfere with a family member from another state adopting out a child that is subject to being placed in foster care. They did that in this case, too. There's so many shall nots that the state of Ohio has violated willfully because they've been noticed of their failures, and then still willfully didn't comply with them, and then lied and said they fixed it.
And they don't respond. They don't respond.
Well, it's not a matter of responding. They've contrived to make it so. Remember how we talk about in child custody cases, these are civil matters. In civil causes of action, the rules of discovery apply. They're required to give discovery to the parents. They're to the mom and to mother and father. They're required. They're not supposed to. See, and that's where you have issues. Is in this case, we are in the
issue. There's several issues here. There's several issues that they're using.
There's only one issue. And that is the corruption of the judicial system because the bar union is a criminal organization.
Agreed.
That's the only issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That is the only issue here is that the bar union is a criminal organization. I'm not saying everyone in it is a criminal. What I'm telling you is that
law in its purest form, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's pretty basic.
Well, yeah, like I said, the problem is not the law of either pillar. It's not the problem is the law of the de jure pillar of private commerce law, which is what between private individuals, which then get together and create states, right, and corporations. So the de jure constitution is the first pillar of private commerce. The de facto right now is the second pillar of our instruments of our government, our republic, which is the public commerce law, which is the statutes brought forth through the statutory instruments and then the statutory courts that were created by the Judicial Act of 1789, setting aside and saving to suitors, meaning the clause of saving to suitors the common law remedy where it's competent to give it. So we allowed the statutory courts to expand and do whatever they wanted to do as long as they, by law, were providing remedy at law. That's in Section 16
of
they're
not providing remedy at law.
They're not doing that. And remember, remedy is a tort, so they are not just supposed to be addressing trespasses at law. They're supposed to be addressing torts at law. And they're actually committing torts within the judiciary. Now, mind you, I want to say the Judiciary Act of 1789 is called the Judiciary Law. If you read the annotations, that's the Judiciary Law, little l. So every time, I'm citing the Judicial Act of 1789, that's considered the statutory law that governs all judiciary. That's how they were formed. Those are the rules of engagement. Those are the principal maxims of their craft. And when we did that, if you look at the annotated, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, okay, the subject of the show, I have to come in with at least sharing the topic at hand. And a lot, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I premised the show as broaching this censorship issue that we're all experiencing. Yes. All of us, I think, in the network are being subjected to really
they're using absolutely. I've been censored twice in 5 days on Facebook, for espousing things that I have every right under free speech to say and do. And we have the issues with Twitter and on Google. I think they all need broken up.
Twitter
I think that they're monopolists.
Took away my ability to post. They just took away that option.
Well, right. And
I can't even
completely
go back
altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically what you have is, again, we're back to corporate whenever you have corporations who have a vested profit margin, we're not talking not-for-profits here. We're talking about for-profit corporations. The United States corporation is a for-profit corporation. Okay, it was designed to be for-profit. It's a for-profit trading company established for the benefit of the United States of America, the United States of America, the little U, big S of America. It's our trading company, and that is in coup. It's been in coup not because of the law that it's bound by, but because the people in it are violating the law willfully.
I think what we're actually seeing is we're seeing a a law that applies to the instruments of states, the corporation, and then a law that applies to the people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. For example, the judiciary, the corporate, they're corporations sitting in the seats, the republic seats of government. They are corporations that have been appointed to be trustees of our estates that were set aside after the Titles of Nobility Declaration, which removed us from the law of the realm by declaration. We said we don't want your titles of nobility people shall not rule our law. That's what it says, basically. So they cannot power trust.
The reason I was calling, and I decided to have this conversation live debate with you on the air,
right,
basically is, I guess, because what I see happening, because I have friends in Britain that run social media, right, news network,
right,
and I see is happening, because what's basically, they've taken away the arms over there already, and they're like stages ahead of us, and what I'm seeing is this divide that they've been cultivating amongst the people with the political correctness and the weaponized propaganda. What they've created, they're going to keep mounting this until they get it to a certain point. And they're going to use it. They're going to use it. What they're going to do is they're going to leverage this, what they passed, which was quote unquote hate speech. They're going to leverage that to erode the Second Amendment. Or the freedom, not just
you mean the First Amendment?
Yeah, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and the Fourth Amendment, I think.
Guess what? I'm allowed to hate people in the United States, and I'm allowed to say out loud that I hate people. And I'm allowed.
The problem is with hate speech, the actual bill is so vague.
Well, here's the distinction: hate speech
is subjective, even. Like they can use it, and that's what they're doing with these political agendas, though, Lotus. That's what they're doing.
Hate speech is not free speech in that respect. Hate speech is when you say, I hate such and such, and they all should be killed, and everyone should go kill them. That's hate speech. Speech is protected. Free speech is protected until you traverse a bar. For example, you can talk in a movie theater. You can scream epitaphs of hatred in a movie theater. You cannot, however, scream fire. Because when you scream fire, it puts other people's life at risk. So the boundaries between hate speech and free speech, in my mind, is it's not a criminal act to speak hatefully about people. I would not suggest you defame an individual or you slander them or libel them, because they could come back and sue you civilly for such defamation of character, such and such. But if I want to scream epitaphs about a class of people, guess what? You're allowed to do that in this country. And that may be offensive to some people with weak emotional constitutions, such as the ones we're raising right now, who think that everything is about them, and we have this entire generation of sociopathic narcissists, is all I can tell. Who think it's all about me, me, me. And but I don't care if I offend you. I could care less if I offend you. I'm sorry. I say a lot of things that are offensive, but they also happen to be truths. Because here's the problem with tagging people when they speak hateful or things that upset you, is a lot of times what they're trying to do is hide truths.
Exactly.
Truths about sections of people, truths about law, truths about this, truths about that. So
what
in
I'm
their
projecting,
respect,
is this same assault on that we're seeing with the guns. I'm projecting that we're going to see it on free speech as well. It's coming in a massive way. They're going to come for that.
I need to explain some things, and I need to give me some patience here.
Right.
Britain is not the United States of America. First off, Britain. The funny thing is that we got our Bill of Rights from them, which includes freedom of speech. Okay, we brought that with us from Europe. From Britain, yes. The Bill of Rights were established prior, and they were already established in the Chancery of Britain. Here's the distinction between the United States and every other country that I know of in the world that I've studied. Britain has a king who can just say, screw Chancery, I don't care what the Bill of Rights says, you were granted that by me, and I can take it back at any time, which is where they're at. And that's, if you're under any of the other crowns of law that I speak of, the Roman civil law, the ecclesiastic law, and the martial law, you are subject to the will of another state of man or king or pope or a vicar of Christ to have your rights affirmed, and in that they can take it back at any time. the distinction between America and why American common law is completely and separately distinct, as well as American admiralty law, for that respect, from British common law and British admiralty, is that we don't have kings. And you cannot usurp any of our unalienable rights. No one in government can take away that Bill of Rights.
The last time we spoke is our unalienable rights.
Right.
Our unalienable rights are not subject. Yeah.
Right. The fact that they have been aliened tells you that your government is not lawful. I don't care about people here's the beauty of statutes. They use statutes to argue particularities to actually undermine sovereignty. That's what Aristotle said. Okay. Statutes are used in that respect.
Lotus, we had discussed a template for the porthole to justice regarding FCC complaints, and
I've done some research.
Yeah, you had contacted the FCC, and you've actually done some research, and I think it's pretty important.
Research on that.
Yeah,
and I looked to the FTC first because they are the controllers of the internet or the airwaves, let's say. So they actually rule the providers of the airwaves. So they rule the internet. So the internet itself is regulated by the FCC because it is a public instrument. It's a public transfer and utility, the same as your phone line, the same as the water lines that supply your house, the same as the gas lines that supply your house, the same as the roads. Those are public transferring utilities that we own. The people own them proper. That's part of our estate. That's part of the property owned by the United States of America and the United States Corporation. We own them. We built them. We paid for them. They're ours. We lease them. We let people borrow them.
When they claim the FCC doesn't have jurisdiction, would you say
it's because they're not a provider? So Facebook is not a provider of those transferring utilities. But the point of me expressing that those are transferring utilities is when you use those transferring utilities, you become subject to the compact and the contract of the states. You become subject to the compact of the de jure Constitution in the States United, and you become culpable to the liable for the contract that you agreed when you took a franchise and an FCC license and a this and an FTC, the charter. So if you're a corporation operating within the territorial state, corporate states of California, which is where Facebook is, you are agreeing that you are subject to the same compact and contract. In fact, corporations are very distinctly addressed in the Bankruptcy Act of 1898. So when you are a corporation, and you have a franchise, a state licensure, which is a franchise of a public nature. A corporate charter is a franchise of a public nature. You are not allowed to have corporate charters except for the purposes of providing a service to the public. Facebook is a publicly traded corporation. I am not an employee of Facebook. I cannot be held to be mandated to their internal procedures of their corporate charter I'm not willfully an employee of.
This is what they're doing. So, in tandem with Child Protective Services, we see the same sort of rationale and trend coming through in law. I'm just trying to make a point here.
I don't disagree with you, but here's the problem. There are vacancies in the law because have you ever heard of a case where an internet service, or somebody who offers a public forum for public discourse of a publicly traded company that's a franchise of a public nature registered in California ever being sued for violations of the First Amendment, which mandated that there are... See, here's what people don't understand about law. Until you challenge an activity that is deemed against the statute or against the higher law, the Constitution itself, they can run with it. That's the way. That's how they operate. So that's the problem with statutory law is there's these huge vacancies because no attorney has done their job in preventing such activities, and they've obfuscated. We assume that they're doing their job. The attorneys are not doing their job.
No, they're not doing their jobs. They're not doing their jobs. And in the past,
the attorney.
In the past,
but the attorney,
we've had letter campaigns and we've had campaigns.
I'm talking about letter campaigns.
I know. I'm talking about. No, I'm just. I'm going to get back to the subject. Just bear with me.
Right.
In the past, we've had templates posted to the port where parents have, sent in fraud on the court with attached evidence to fake agencies such as the Children's Bureau of Investigation, where they all got back the same uniform letters that said your case does not meet the qualifications for our agency to investigate. All of them.
I understand that. We did all that. We even talked to the feds. We mandated an internal investigation. We did all that. We've done it.
So look, in this instance, we're going to work together, and we're going to try to create a paper trail. And we're are you saying we're gonna post this, and then we're gonna?
Okay. The only thing? Okay. Here, there's two options we have. Okay, and I need everyone to understand this, because if you're going to make a complaint, you need to understand what the process is to be. Everyone who has been banned from Facebook needs to call the FTC phone number. I think I gave that to you, Amelia. You should put it on the air. I think I sent that to you in a text.
Right,
I said, here's the number to call to create a phone FTC complaint against Facebook for their violation of your free speech rights. Because I don't have to. Okay, if Facebook is a state franchise of a public nature that offers a public communication platform, they don't get to regulate my speech. And if they're going to mandate that I have to speak a certain way, then they're not a public instrument; they're a private instrument, and they need to have their franchise. They're not chartered that way.
Because you see where you're being inhibited on speaking out on your platforms. Right. I'm being inhibited.
Oh, absolutely.
Our reach is being
absolutely. A lot of when I'm speaking. It's the fact that they're telling me that I can't say certain things or do some things, which are squarely protected under the First Amendment. I don't have to waive a substantial right in order to use a public forum of communication that is supposed to be of a public nature and is a public traded corporation that has agreed to comply with the state guidelines and the federal guidelines.
It's the devil's advocate here. I just want to pose a question as a devil's advocate, a little, just kind of. What grounds, when the FCC replies, we don't have the jurisdiction to challenge Facebook?
The Federal Trade Commission does. The Federal Trade is responsible for Facebook's compliance with the Constitution.
Why do all of these investigative agencies claim they don't have jurisdiction in order to review legitimate cases and violations? What are the people are approaching? What are people approaching? Look, they're using this jurisdiction issue as if it's gold.
Well, okay. Well, first off, the executive branch can't. We're talking about separation of powers. Again, they're using the construct of our instruments with the vacancies of the attorneys not doing their job to hide criminality and to prevent claims. So, for example, the FBI cannot go investigate the judiciary. They're the executive branch versus the judicial branch. The people who have to investigate the judiciary, by law, treason and sedition, because there's treason and sedition abound in the judiciary all over this country. We are lawless. The judiciary is an utter coup. They're preventing claims. They're allowing criminality. They are even if you want it, they're at a complete loss. I imagine.
Do you notice, Lotus? This is just me as an observer. All right.
But the point is, the military has that jurisdiction.
Every single case, the argument always comes down to jurisdiction.
That's because, you know why though? Because those parents were already failed by an attorney who didn't demand discovery and didn't follow the due process law.
But why is this the default argument? Why is this always the default argument?
Okay, look. The issue at hand is that in these causes of action, the attorneys are not following due process of law, and they're undermining due process willfully. Okay, and when an attorney tries to impose due process of law, that attorney is threatened, disbarred, you name it.
But so they're not even allowing. It's like they use it as a blanket statement, because even it's like okay. Let's go run you down the wrong rabbit hole. Okay, we're the FCC.
Well,
wait a second. Not only are they doing it in children's court, but it's like, oh, we're the FCC, and we're sorry, but your case doesn't meet our standards for jurisdiction. Therefore, we can't investigate.
It has to be a violation. First off, for any civil cause of action, there must be a violation of a statute. First off. So if parents are averring treason and seditious acts, it's not in the jurisdiction. That goes to the military. So they're not lying to people if they're sitting there saying, this attorney and this judge colluded to undermine.
It's like a default response. It's like it just seems like it's so automatic. And when you talk about...
they're potentially factual statements. They're saying this isn't our jurisdiction.
It's a very broad statement, though, Lotus. And you and we have talked at length about the Rucker-Feldman and jurisdiction. And
I'm not talking about the Rucker-Feldman.
I know, but you tried to get resolution and remedy. Why is this all of a sudden because
here's why, and I'm trying to explain this to you. The failure is not the primary failure. The cause of action that is the tort is the attorneys conspiring to undermine due process in collusion within the court itself when it happened. And the attorneys who failed those parents, those mother and father, and didn't demand due process be followed. There's nothing in Title IV that suspends due process of law.
Bury them in motions to demand your rights. It's like it always comes down to,
that's what you get for letting an attorney do your work for you, and you don't speak up when they're failing in their fiduciary duty, and they just railroaded you with their bar union member across the bar and the bar union member sitting on the bench. That's the crime.
I mean, it's like even if you have a valid argument,
Listen.
Right.
After that fact happens, if you don't object, first off, you don't reserve rights. That's the law. If you allow them
if you can't afford to bury them in motions, that's my point. That's what I'm trying to say. If you can't afford to bury them in motions to demand your rights, even then, when you do, if there's no remedy, what the flip do we do?
That's because there is a conspiracy to undermine the laws in the first place by the bar unions. You don't get to go complain. Okay, here's the point. That's the primary problem. If after this course of action you write all this stuff to your senators and this and that, they don't have jurisdiction. The legislative act can do nothing about a coup in the judiciary. Only the military can. The executive branch can.
Is this why they keep referring it out? Because they're
absolutely they don't.
So then let's bring it. Let's bring it. Let's do it. Let's do what we have to do. Like step 2. Let's get on it.
Okay. Well, what's to get on? with Facebook, everyone needs to file a complaint with FCC. And everyone needs to get together.
Yeah.
And someone probably is going to have to file a cause of action and get them in the federal courts and have them broken up as a monopoly and have their fair practices revoked and have their FCC license challenged.
Well, baby steps.
The FCC, have their state licensures and stuff challenged.
Yeah.
They're sitting here operating on public airways called the Internet, which are transferring utilities which we own. And if you're going to use them, you have to comply with the greater high law of the federal construct, which is where they're managed by. If you are using the Internet, just like if you're using the highway, you can't go along the highways, which are transferring utilities, and lien my substantial rights as a business practice. That's against the law. So Facebook is using a transferring utility called the Internet to affect commerce. They make money. And when they do that, they have to comply with the greater higher law, the federal construct, and they don't get to lien my substantial rights in the making of money in a public access form across publicly owned transferring utilities. That's the crime. That's as simple as I can put it. There's no reason, no attorney has brought forth a cause of action other than either the people aren't demanding it or they don't want Facebook to be split up. They want to control the media. And that, again, goes back to the coup within the bar unions. Even good bar union members are threatened daily, murdered, disbarred, you name it, put in prison. It's been going on for years, okay?
And my argument is if we don't defend this issue, Lotus, we won't have this luxury to debate on the air, online, on Facebook, anywhere. Like our opinions, our feelings, or what have you, will cease to be heard if we don't.
Absolutely, and that's the goal. But that's part of the coup. That's fascism, controlling all media, being able to perpetuate and control the message to the people. That is the primary means of perpetuating fascism, is through controlling the press and manipulating through propaganda, this false flags, false things, this false shootings here, false reports here.
And this is the thing. It's like this false shooting that just recently happened. why weren't we able to see the film footage? You know, we have so many cameras and so much surveillance.
Because your bar union, the people.
Why can't we, the people, see this camera footage? It's just
because you're in coup. Because you're in occupation by foreign agents who are undermining your laws. Because the bar unions are foreign agents operating for bankers.
We're actively at war, and these,
we are actively at war, and we are being oppressed by fascism.
It's so unbelievable. Fascism. It's so unbelievable to me that these Q people have made a total joke out of Pizzagate and Pedogate. It's a traumatizing event, and you have these commentators, you know, trying to make light of it and build some like it's just abomination to me to watch what's happening.
Okay, people, but everything's happening.
No, people listen to me. Podesta has not been arrested. Hillary Clinton does not have an ankle bracelet on. Uma Abedin does not have an ankle bracelet on.
She was just in India. How can she have an ankle bracelet on?
This guy is a con artist. He's a con artist.
Look here. Okay.
Look,
stop complaining.
I'm not complaining. We cannot. What I'm trying to say to people. This is a very real fight and a coup within our government. It's not some QAnon dude saying it's some psyop, you know, where we have it's like a video game where you can go on and I can research this and Q just said this and Q just said that. That's bullshit. This is the real deal. This is a real fight.
We are inundated with shills and tools abound, and I could name them off and count them on fingers. But I'm going to tell you this.
What I'm trying to say is look, I am just as heated about this as everybody else. I don't quite know how to articulate my anger quite yet, but I am trying.
Well, I'm trying to tell you where to direct it. There's two directions here, and I'm going to be very clear on this. When it comes to Facebook, the first step is anyone who has been denied or suspended from the use of a public platform of communication using publicly transferring utility internet lines regulated by the FCC. They need to contact the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and file a written or an email or a phone report. It's real simple. I gave you the number. You can name it out here. I don't have it with me right now.
I posted it in the comments and the interactive. Lotus, I just want to let you know I posted the phone number and the FCC point of contact to the live chat.
Right, and that's the FTC, not the FCC, not the Federal Communications Commission, the FTC. And with the FTC, there's actually there's Internet Crimes Division, which is part of the FBI. Mm-hmm. So if there's enough people with complaints, we can actually then file complaints with the FBI saying, we feel like there's a concerted effort, but, I don't think the FBI is really the place to do this here. The point here is to make the complaints with the FTC and then see how many complaints there are. I think if everyone who's been unlawfully and unconstitutionally had their freedom of speech violated by Facebook, by their internal practices, guess what? I'm not an employee. You can't bring me before the Human Resources Division. I didn't agree to be in contract with you. I'm not an employee of Facebook. You can't hold me to private bylaw.
I see these same, I'm sorry, but I have to point this out to you. CPS does the same thing with their policies and procedures. They try to make the parents follow the CPS handbook internal policies and procedures.
I'm not obligated to do that.
Hold them to those laws.
These are different issues. I understand there's a broader view,
but I'm trying to explain something that's going on here. This is a political movement of political correctness versus unalienable rights. It's not even a constitutional matter. This is dire situation.
Well, okay, so the thing with Facebook we've addressed. You need to start filing complaints. Everyone who's done that needs to file a complaint with FTC and follow it up. Do a written one. I'm going to go ahead and write a written one eventually when I get to time. And then if they don't do anything about it, there's hundreds of. If everyone did that, there'd be 1 million complaints tomorrow. Okay, so if 1 million complaints were levied against Facebook for violating First Amendment rights to the FTC, they would be mandated to act.
I'm not going to ask how, because God willing,
okay, but
we can get 1 million
in my
FCC
mind,
complaints.
Facebook is much like Are you old enough to remember the Southwestern? Are you old enough to remember the Southwestern Belt crack up where they were made to break up? That didn't happen because of anything other than someone sued them. Okay?
You're talking about the major corporations that started to conglomerate and then were separated.
I'm talking about the mandate to break up corporations that violate federal trade acts and violate monopolistic practices and do all this stuff. And Southwestern Ma Bell had to be broken up. Okay, you remember that, right?
Yeah.
The reason why that happened wasn't because we sat on a talk show and complained about it. Everyone started complaining about the practices and did it in writing because Americans actually did their job back then, and they complained through the administrative processes when their government instruments were not working properly or when they were being oppressed by corporate monopoly. Okay, what eventually happened is they got sued. And within the suit, they were shown to be monopolistically a monopoly in practice and not affecting fair trade, which is what the FTC is there for, and violating people's rights, violating trade, all these agreements, and they were separated as a penalty. So if you want to break up Facebook or nationalize them or take them out of the control of Zuckerberg or whoever, or even the people who hold shares, is you have to sue them. You first have to complain through the processes.
I think we're at a precipice here because I think we're either going to have, it's going to go one or two ways. It's going to go one or two ways, Lotus. We're either going to have a massive awakening of people that realize this, and they're going to become more active. They're going to become more active, and they are going to file, or we're going to have the latter. Because
there's a reason why they're pairing what they're doing with all the antidepressants, the fluoride in the water, and everything else, and all the inundation of drugs and stuff. And so you're too stupid and too unenlightened, and you can't even achieve full consciousness to even see what they're doing. But here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't seem to have a problem understanding it. I don't have a problem seeing it. But I'm going to tell you another thing. If I'm the only person out there and I don't see hundreds of thousands of complaints because they do quarterly, you can get a quarterly report. You can find out if a company's had FCC complaint.
Are we going to post a template so they don't? We can take the
template. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. The only template is calling and making the complaint.
All right.
And then if there's enough complaints made to the FTC, they're mandated to act. If they don't act, then we literally have to sue them.
Right.
We actually bring a
So I need complaint numbers, folks. I'm posting in the portal to Justice. I want you to, under the show, I'm going to post a link and a phone number to the FTC. And I want you to post in the comments your complaint number so that Lotus and I can keep track.
Well, you need to track it. In my mind, if everyone on Facebook that has had their freedom of speech aliened would file a complaint tomorrow, the FTC would have to have a hearing next week, okay? That's what people are failing to do. You can't complain about remedy and relief when you don't even follow the administrative procedures of your government. The administrative procedures are there for the American people to exercise and mandate that their government follows their fiduciary duty to prevent crimes against the American people by corporations. That's their job. And instead, they're colluding and conspiring with corporations in a fascist nature through the bar union. One fascia, one union is controlling all the corporations of the world, and they are affecting tyranny, baby trafficking, and willful intent, all this stuff.
Horrible. It's horrible.
That's the fascism. And let me address the fascism. If you have a coup in the judiciary, the only instrument of law and this is the law, the military has jurisdiction over treason and sedition. Just the military. Why do you think Trump has so many military people behind him? Because they know. They know. Okay? If the American people, however, are not rising up in every fashion they can, say, there's a coup in the judiciary, the bar unions are criminals. What's the difference between a cop and a robber? What's the only difference? It's the face, the persona of state. If a cop acts like a robber, if the judiciary acts like a criminal enterprise, if the judiciary acts like the mafia, if the bar union acts like a mafia, that's what they are. I don't care what you call them. They are what they are. If it acts like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's a duck. I don't care if they call themselves a judiciary. I don't care if they call themselves a cop. I don't care if they call themselves an esquire. If they are conspiring with guns to intimidate the American people in concert, in conspiracy to undermine the laws of the United States, not only is that RICO and a criminal enterprise, racketeering and everything, but it's treason.
Conspiring to remove weapons from the people with the Second Amendment,
Absolutely.
which was initiated.
Look,
To
people need to understand
to activate against a tyrannical government.
Okay, but we're talking about particulars. People need to get it in their mind that the basic premise is the bar union esquires are cooing your government. And they're not doing it for your benefit. They're stealing your children. They're stealing your property. They're civilly seizing things they don't have the right to seize because you don't understand the law and you don't understand what they've done to obfuscate the law. That's what everyone needs to accept. And stop talking about particularities until you can understand the basic premise. Because the particularities don't matter. They're irrelevant if you don't get the
probate law, right?
I'm sorry?
The basic premise.
We're not probate. We're in bankruptcy. The reason why they can seize your property, even though it's personal, is because no one has ever affirmed. Again, the vacancies of the law. No one has ever gone through the courts and affirmed that your child is that you own your own flesh. Your government thinks it owns your body. That your body is their property, not that it's your personal property.
My body is my temple. My body is my temple. And my God is not in their courtroom, or my king.
No one has advanced that argument, but me. Okay, I'm the only one I know. In fact, I have people trying to undermine that.
And folks, and Lotus, I want to give you some props because you are the only person that I know that is perpetuating this premise. And Lotus has a YouTube channel, Lunch with Lotus. Everybody, I encourage you to subscribe. You know, we put a lot out there.
The thing that they really should try to comprehend, because it's very extensive. It's hard to realign your mind with this concept that we have been lied to about who our government is, what they are, what the law that governs your government. Our trustees. It's really hard to do what we do because you get. I know, I can break it down. I can break it down very easily.
Okay.
Your government is not de jure. I mean, it's not the government your Constitution talks about. Okay, the Constitution you see now is a statutory construct. That's the second pillar. Your government are merely corporations that have been appointed by the Pope and the shareholders of our, quote, bankruptcy debt, the people who laid claim against the United States of America. They are appointed to be the trustees of our estates. They have a fiduciary duty as independent instruments of trusteeship. They are corporations sitting in the seats of our de jure government. The beauty of that is that the reason why it was designed that way, and it's divine, is because now instead of having a rebellion with guns, all we have to do is expose the frauds within the trusteeship, and we have those fraudulent trustees removed and or those fraudulent corporations seized into the law, and they disappear. And we don't have to have a rebellion, civil war. We actually correct the course of tyrannical corporations and governments within the constructs of the law. See, that's where we're at. We're at a precipice where either the law does its job or we get cast aside. Right. But here's the deal on that.
Here's the other thing. You know, we have these blockheads that they're like, yeah, we're cool under the color of law.
Well, the color of law is a simulation of process. It's not the law. That's why if it was the law, it wouldn't be called the color of law. It looks like law, but is it law? So the question is when you look at it, is it just the color of it? Am I the color blue or am I blue? Am I the color of something? When you say the color of law, it's under the auspices or the authority of the law, but you're not necessarily operating in the law.
Okay.
But you're supposed to.
And then if you go to court, let's say you go to court.
They're not courts. First, they're not courts.
And
they're not courts. They're not courts of law. They are bankruptcy forms of a private jurisdiction.
You're expecting due process, right? You go to court. You're expecting.
Well, how can you get due process when you walk into a court where you already have a lien against your property and your personal estates and chattels from 1898?
Yeah, so no
See,
due
that's
process,
why
in
they're
other
able
words.
to seize your okay. That's why they're able to do civil forfeiture. You've already had your estates and chattels, your personal property lien. You're not supposed to have your personal property seized in bankruptcies. And they're presuming your children. The reason why they're allowed.
What I'm personally fighting in court this week is jurisdiction in Los Angeles, and I'm here in Texas.
I understand that.
For over a year now, almost 2 years.
I understand, but no court has no court of rem, which is a court that affects things. Your all capital instrument is a thing. No court in rem or quasi-rem by law has jurisdiction over the real man. Now, they do that they put it in their student primers that they subject children in courts of rem, which are actions against things. So they're treating your child as a thing who doesn't even have corporeal rights to his flesh. They're seizing your child as a thing, a car, a house, a gun. They don't care. They think everything is a thing but them.
Yeah,
okay?
And this is how they skewed SB 18 in California.
And the reason why
Senate Bill 18 with Senator Pan, and they skewed that by taking more rights. And that way, the child doesn't even have to give out. They can just go in the judge's chambers.
Well, attorneys advance bad case law all the time to promote their coup. That's what they do.
We discussed Senate Bill 18, and
they literally conspire within the legislature and conspire within the judiciary.
In your opinion,
I think we started with the FBI. I promise you, everyone.
But this is important. I have a question, and I'm playing a little bit of the devil's advocate this show, and I apologize. I'm not trying to be... No, but I'm trying to get stuff out of you is what I'm trying to do.
Right, but you're talking about particularities which are moot and irrelevant.
No,
That's
it
what
is.
statutes...
You would think that it's moot and irrelevant. However, they're using these political persuasions to legislate laws that would give judges way too much power over minors and the trafficking of humans. The trafficking of humans. We're talking about the legalization, trafficking of human beings. I don't care what age it is.
Everything that's legal is about trafficking. That's the point. You're sitting here exposed over the legals trafficking. That's the whole point. That's what their union is about. That's what they've done since the inception of titles of nobility. They are the foreign agents sent by the king to eat out the substance of the...
Okay, Lotus got too heated and literally burned the communication wires. Wow, Lotus,
for a second,
we can feel your...
What?
We can feel your heat. What? You're getting cut out.
I'm just saying that... Right. I'm just saying that people, they're the same people.
I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I just am kind of playing the devil's advocate
but
a
it
little
irritates
bit.
Me.
I'm sorry.
There is no purpose. There is no purpose to talk about particularities because no matter what, that's what, look, Aristotle said. Statutes are there to undermine the natural rights of men. They are used to argue particularities in particular circumstances to particular people to apply law in different circumstances to different people inequitably. That's what Aristotle says. If Aristotle says that when the sophists began their attornment of the law, that's what I'm going to follow. There's no point in arguing particularities of statute. You never do. You won't win. The only way to win an argument, as Aristotle said...
But what I'm trying to do, and I know you are you're arguing this very eloquently and very clearly, in a simplified manner, and I appreciate it so much. I'm not so much disagreeing with you as I'm trying to just state. I'm trying to translate this into layman terms.
What they're doing is, okay, listen. Okay, they want you to get bogged down in arguing particularities. Okay, they want you to. What you need to argue is the Constitution and the high law, and that's it.
And file massive motions. Massive mountains of motions, and force them to give you your rights.
And if people would stop arguing the particularities and learn to see exactly what is really going on and see that the central and only issue is the coup of the United States instrument, which is a trading company by foreign agents sent hither by the king and the Pope to rout out the substance of the people that were right back to 1776, except this time we have law and statute that supports what we're saying. And if the only reason it's being perpetuated is because good attorneys have been threatened and thwarted and tyrannized to not advance the law proper in the argument of statutes, and that the American people have been tyrannized and beat down into subjugation through a variety of ways and miseducated in the law, and that this needs to stop because here's the beauty of this.
I would mostly say that, we have a war on men. I want to say several things here because there's so much going on culturally, Lotus.
Well, they don't care. That's the reason they're going to argue particularity. No. You're going to talk particularities again.
No,
I'm going to tell you something.
No, look. Not only did they remove the man as the head of the family. Okay, just think about this for 1 second.
Manifesto.
Think about this for 1 second, okay? And I know this is a little bit random and off topic. Not only did they remove the man from the head of the family, and that as being the title role, they have actively campaigned against masculinity, and now they're going in for the kill. It seems because they're promoting women as leaders. They're
You want me to tell you why? Do you want me to tell you why?
Well, I think it has something to do with all of this. I really do.
There's 2 points here.
I think it's relevant right now in this argument.
But there's 2 points that need to be made. Whenever a country goes into rebellion, it benefits the bankers. If you have a civil war, okay, you are put into a custody by the bankers. So the reason why they're creating divisiveness is in the hopes that there'll be a civil war so they can put us in another trust and subjugate us again in another custody and take over our banks again.
So they're actively doing this. They're actively doing this.
They're doing it intentionally.
They're dancing around. They're dancing around the Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment, First Amendment.
Okay, they're going right back.
Yeah, they're doing for the juggler. They're going for the juggler, everyone. If you're listening in and you're tuning into the Porthole to Justice, I hope you're listening because,
Listen, they're doing exactly what Aristotle said they do. They're going to sit there and apply the law inequitably and then point to each group going, look how inequitable you are. That's what they do. It's so that people are always at each other's throats instead of seeing the greater issue, which is a coup of your government. Everything that you see that is of a divisive nature is 100% contrived by the controllers of this world. 100%. Through propaganda, lies, obfuscation, and outright fraud. That's the point. So when people go, oh, black men, white men, look, men are the husbands. They're in charge of the husbandry in the law. The keepers of that which women create. Men are the husbands, women are the mothers. Women are the creators, men are supposed to keep and secure what woman makes. If you attack the keepers of the protectors, the husbands, the husbandry of a nation, of the family, of the state, then you have undermined the law. Okay? That's why they're doing what they're doing. But the fact of the matter is they're doing exactly what Aristotle said criminals do, and people who are trying to undermine free-thinking, natural rights people are.
For putting that so simplified and eloquently, because that's what I was trying to get out of you. That was awesome.
But I mean, that's the point. You go back to what you go,
and you don't have to apply sexuality to it necessarily. It doesn't have to be the husbandry, or that dynamic can differ in today's society. However, we need to stress
because the government does husbandry.
Well, they do, and that's why we need to stress the argument. Is exactly what I was saying, and that was my point.
Yes, husbandry is what they're attacking. Period.
Yeah.
Period. They're attacking not just husband. They're attacking men and the state.
They're attacking you. They're attacking the states. They're attacking us.
They're attacking everybody with particularity.
We're the commodity. Okay. We're the commodity in their trade.
Okay. Give me a second here. Let's evolve a synopsis and a what if. what if I could control every aspect of the state and I could create inequity? I could create inequity, inequality. And then by the application
of technology, we can pervert humanity. We can
Amelia, let me explain this.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me explain this without interruption.
All right,
okay?
Go ahead.
You, as a government, manipulate and create inequity in people. That's what statutes are for. That's what our stuff does. This is 2,000 plus years old. This is old stuff. Statutes are used to create iniquity. Then, as a state, since I benefit as a banker and the Pope by creating rebellion, I extort the iniquity I've created and pit those positions, those people against each other in order to control and manipulate their actions and their sovereignty and their susticate and their estates. Because if I can get those groups of people that I made inequitable by my contrived actions and frauds as a state through statutes, and I get you to rebel and fight against each other, the Pope swoops in and the susticate trust is applied and we become oppressed again by bankers. That's the point.
Absolutely. And so we have this indoctrinated generation of children coming into the picture.
They're just vacant of knowledge of law, and they're sycophants in a way. They follow whatever they are told to do. You know, I mean, they're not. As my mom said, there's very few people that have critical thinking skills anymore. And wouldn't fluoride in your brain do that to you? I mean, these kids have been raised on massive amounts of fluoride. I'm talking baby formulas have like 30 times the permissible level allowed in poison. I mean, it's a poison, and they're putting it in baby food. Okay, if that doesn't tell you that your government...
As long as you're going to keep going, I'm going to keep going with this as long as you're doing
Well, I mean, and the point of that is doctors are entitled to nobility. Doctors are just as bad as esquires. The doctors running the CDC and the EPA and the FDA, they're all in collusion right there with the esquires to undermine the laws and the safety and security of the American people. They're poisonous through immunizations, they're poisonous through food, they're poisonous through fluoride in the water, they're poisoning our air, they're poisoning everything they get their hand on, because if they pollute our minds, we won't be critical thinkers.
Well, what I think we need to focus on for a minute here, Lotus, is strategy, and that is protecting the freedom of speech, protecting our ability to go live and do these types of shows. You know, we don't get a lot of kudos. We don't get a lot of kudos for what we're doing.
No,
you know?
no.
And we would like to put more flesh in the game, and we need support. I think, you know, if you can go to Lotus's YouTube channel, you can tune into Lunch with Lotus live. She has a great show where she really talks in depth about these principles.
I have like something like 50 videos where I try to explain in minute detail with citations to prove to people what I'm saying. It's all in the history. It's all in the annals of Congress. It's all in the statutes. It's all in the Constitution. It's all in the positive law, in case law. It's all there, what I'm saying. It's all there. No one's ever put it together.
And Lotus has a unique profile of qualifications, you know, to back up her arguments. And they're
I definitely have standing. I've been victimized by it.
She is standing in law, and she has her own story in regards to, you know, fighting this system.
Ray's been victimized. Ray and Clay. Everybody.
But I don't think people really understand. Like when you know. I have people online, Lotus. They're like, F you. You don't talk about TPR'd parents. You don't talk about the real misery and heartache behind it. And in all fairness, Lotus, I want to express something. I'm trying to cross over, and if here's the thing. People, they want to hear about what you're doing to be inspirational. They don't want to hear about so much, and it's a fine line that I have to walk, you know.
Well, yeah, because they get that cognitive dissonance. But I'm trying to get people away from the bitch me column. You know, just bitching about stuff doesn't change anything. It doesn't change anything. That's what they want you to just do.
Exactly.
They want us to sit around and commiserate and talk about particularities when the overwhelming scope of it is that there's a coup. Your government is in coup. The bar unions have couped your government. You've been in coup for, about 200 years now. and they've had a long time to work their way to where the point they can claim your child as the personal property of the Pope. That's where you're at. And until people accept that fact and start from the premise of truth and move forward, all the complaining is moot because it solves nothing. And as we sit and complain, children are trafficked, humans are trafficked, people are trafficked in prison, people are poisoned, murdered, you name it. This is a world mafia. This is a mafia of people.
They have become global, and this is what a lot of people refuse to digest.
They've always been global. They've always been global. If you've listened
to the porthole, the whole progression of the porthole to justice, and you've listened to the archives, you know that this is a global agenda. This is not people we're talking about state by state instruments of state. No, this is a global mafia that is operating in coup of the American government.
They have cooed the United States corporation as in their trusteeship for the purposes of undermining our republic and trying to manipulate the American people into a rebellion, an all-out open gun rebellion, so that the Pope and the Queen and the world bankers can then seize us all under sus decay, try to put us under foreign state occupation openly.
Is null and void. Okay. It's null and void. There is no right versus left. This is nationalist versus global.
No, it's one party.
It's
fascism. It's global fascism. Oppressed through the nations, which are the instrument. Your nation, there's the country, which is the people and the land and the estates, and everything that the land holds under the Creator. And then there's your nation, which is the corporate instruments that occupy the seats that we have ascended them to manage those country estates. Every nation in the world is cooed by the same people, bar union members, who are affecting international Babylonian slave trade banking because that's what it originated from. That's how the banking started, through the Roman Empire slave trading. That's what started it all. We're still operating in the Roman Empire slave trade system of banking. That has to change. It's our job. It's our manifest destiny. It's our divine providence to change it.
Focus of just the general population. Just we have to figure out how we can change it. Their perception of everything that's going on.
The first thing would be to learn the law and go, oh my gosh, they're not following it.
I'm trying. That's why I asked you to send me the habeas corpus thing, because I
did, by the way. I sent you not only the habeas, but I sent you the administrator's answer.
I understand it conceptually, but I don't understand it.
Well, right. Well, at least you're there conceptually. You understand how I separated the two instruments, the man versus the...
when it comes down to details and memorizing the, penal codes and instruments of law, I'm
There's two instruments here. There's two instruments here. There's flesh, there's the real flesh, and then there's things, which are things. And within the flesh, and where the argument is whether your personal body, okay, first off, and under the law.
We're getting interference here. We're getting listened into.
Right. It was probably on my...
I know, there was another voice there. I distinctly...
Well, okay, so you have... The issue is this. But under the law, you have title by occupancy. Okay, this is when you occupy a house. Squatters' rights, right?
Well,
so if I have squatters'
physical rights versus their hypothetical probate perspective of everybody in the law
I'm just giving you a metaphor and allegory,
which is really perplexing me. It is.
But I'm trying to give you a metaphor and allegory so you can understand this.
All right,
okay.
Thank you.
If I am a squatter, right, and I'm in a house, and no one else is affecting it, okay, and let's just, because this is a great metaphor. If there is a vacant house sitting in a neighborhood, and it's abandoned and it's laying fallow, do you know that in most states, if you go occupy that, and you make improvements to it, and you sit in it, you squat in it, that you can go then lay a claim upon the property as though it's abandoned and you've taken it over, okay?
Uh-huh.
That's called squatter's rights. Title by occupancy, when no one with true title comes up and goes, oh, I didn't mean to lay it fallow. So you can actually do what's called an improvement lien upon an unknown titled property where you don't even know who owns it. You can go lay a lien for the improvements you made. They'll squat in it. Okay? Mm-hmm. That's the law. That's Occupy was doing that with houses. That's why they shut that down. There were Occupy people who had learned, because we had talked to them and discussed with them, that you could go and put a homeless person in a vacated house that's been allowed to lay fallow. You just had to put a lock on it, put a door on it, and then you go lay a civil default. You go and there's a civil default procedure where you can lay title to a vacated abandoned home. It's the same thing with a ship. Now let me go to the sea. If there's a ship running around with nobody on it and no captain, and you find it, same thing. You claim it, you take it into the dock, and you lay claim on it. If no one comes and professes that it's theirs, it's yours. That's what they've done with your body. You never went to them and said, hey, that's my vessel of my soul. That's what they're doing.
It's what they're doing, and it's very simple. It really is. Lotus, oh my gosh, it's been amazing.
I just need everyone to understand what is the truth versus what is the fiction, the fictio, the infictio, the simulation of law. And I need everyone to stop focusing about their emotional rooting in the particularity.
Exactly.
Yes, everyone is being
emotional and egos are being
absolutely
really,
like I said,
really challenged right now.
I'm gonna say a couple names here, and I want people to just be wary, and people can say what they want. Be wary of Anna von Ritz. She is promoting things that are not kosher in the law, and she is saying there are separate direct treasury accounts. There's not. You have one account. It's your SUSK. You don't have access to that right now. That's never going to happen until the bar of equity is cured, and what we're doing is curing, where you can actually claim your personal estates. And even then, you don't get to go route it because it's in a usufruct. Everybody has a little bit of that. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that whole argument that there's some account that's yours, it's not yours. You didn't create it. It's based upon your capita as a person. It's not yours to possess and hold and all that stuff. It is there for your access. The government's accessing it right now to run their estate. They're using your estate value to run all the governments. That's what they're borrowing against, okay? The other person is there's an E-clause stuff going out there. Let me tell you, the E-clause is the emoluments clause. If you're going to go to people who have emoluments, as in the title of an esquire, the Tona Amendment is the only place that I know in the law where the Congress actually took up what is an emolument and defined it and put it within the body of the Constitution. The titles of nobility are an emolument. An attorney, an esquire, is a title of nobility. A doctor is a title of nobility. Licensures of state are titles of nobility. A notarial officer is a title of nobility pursuant to the way the king's hierarchy functions.
Psychiatrist is a registered title of nobility.
Anyone with a doctor degree, with
anybody
a PhD
with a licensure,
okay?
a licensure, a state licensure is potentially a title of nobility.
Absolutely. Those are emoluments. You can't go to the people who have emoluments to settle frauds for emoluments. Okay? You can't do
so
that.
Let's be clear. Let's be very clear about this. This actually expands their abilities. Lotus.
Well, you're going back to the people affecting the fraud to settle the fraud.
And they're just making a bigger. What they're doing is they're just spreading their operation more fully.
They're trying to settle valid claims and obfuscate claims to protect their own interests. Secondly, on that particular fact, if you have an issue with the judiciary and you're in rounding the judiciary to either go to the executive branch or the legislative branch, that's a violation of the separation of powers. That actually is undermining the laws of the United States and could technically probably be treated as treason and sedition, because the Congress. If the Congress knows the judiciary is a coup, and the DOJ knows the judiciary is a coup, and they're allowing you to settle through the to the DOJ and or the Congress, then they're willfully allowing the judiciary to be in coup, which is a treason for one.
Oops. Uh-oh. I don't know what just happened. Oh my gosh. I think I'm sorry, Lotus. Folks, I don't know what happened. Something got cut off. Technical difficulties. Well, listen. We will come back with Miss Lotus on the portal. Oh, she's calling me back. Lotus, what happened? Oh my gosh, are you there? What happened? Hello? Can you hear me? Lotus. All right. So listen, the call failed. Seems to be something going on. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. This has been another episode of Portal to Justice. Off the cuff, the window to the truth. And this is your host, Amelia Duran. Tune in to the Portal to Justice. You can subscribe on Spreaker. Totally free. I'm going to call you back, Lotus. Don't be mad.
Justice be served. One thing to sharpen a blade, it's another thing to use it. We love each other, don't we? I would think twice if I were you. It's one thing to sharpen a blade, it's another to use it. It's one thing to sharpen a blade, it's another thing to use it.